Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Michael Fiddle. You can catch him on Twitter in the Action Network app at Fiddle's Picks, which is it's my favorite of all the Buckets names is Fiddle's Picks. I giggle. I giggle at the Fiddle Picks a little bit every time I hear it. We're going to give you best bets for Thursday in the association. We've got 3 games. The Orlando Magic are a 1.5 favorites at home versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was a little surprised at that line. The Philadelphia 76ers are -4.5 versus the New York Knicks, and the Los Angeles Lakers are a 1-point underdog at home versus the defending champion Denver Nuggets, as the Lakers are down 0-2. We will give you best bets for the slate. We'll break it down, and Fiddle, I think, we have contributors and everybody's got their own strengths. His market analysis to me is like phenomenal. My ears perk up whenever Fiddle starts talking about how the market prices these things and what we've seen in terms of the movement. He's tracking it constantly. He gives really great context on that. If you want more information on all this stuff, plus more great picks, make sure to check out the Action Network app. It's the best way for you to track your picks. You get all sorts of great information. You can check out Brandon Anderson has got like NFL Draft Palooza up. So those of you that enjoy Brandon's work, make sure to go check that out, as well as all of our other great contributors. Chris Raybon's going to have work in there as well. You got all sorts of cool stuff. Our best bets daily. Check it out in the Action Network app. Also check out youtube.com/the Action Network. No live buckets this week during the week. We can't find a slot for it because they put like, we're recording this on Wednesday. They put like the 2 not that great series on the same day, and then every other night has 3. And there's just like not a window for us to do the show to react when people are still awake and there's not a game going on. So we're going to wait till next week. Buckets Live will probably return next week. I'll have more information on you that later this week, but the outpouring of support for it's been awesome. Glad everybody's enjoying the shows. Fiddle, let's get into this, man. So I want to get your general sense from what we're seeing in the market. So Cavs open -2.5 in this game. This flips immediately, and we're now at Magic -1.5. So the market has issued its opinion, which is the market has said like, no, okay, Cavs are up 2-0, but Magic need to be favored here. Or at least there was enough money coming in on the Magic as dogs to move it that direction, where that's no longer the case. This opened Knicks +1.5. It's moved to 4.5. So obviously the Sixers taking a lot. And then Lakers Nuggets is unmoved. Totals in this market, a hilarious 199.5. We have a 199.5 in the year of our Lord 2024 for Cavs Magic after opening 201. Knicks Sixers is down from 205.5 to a market consensus 202.5. There is a 203 you can find in the market. Nuggets Lakers is the only one where everybody's like, no, yeah, this tracks. 216.5. You remarked before we came on, you're like, I think this is a pretty sharp slate. My question for you is, was it sharp at open? I'm within this range, or has it just been bet so profusely since open that now we're at a point where this market is so sharp?
Yeah, since these games happen every 48 to 72 hours in series format, by the time you're 24 hours out from tip off of that game, there's been a lot of bets that come in. There's been movement that come into the market. So we have to factor those into our cap. And if we're betting into kind of a flatter market, which playoff series generally tend to be, because we have 82 games of sample size data. Then we have series where we've seen them play against each other for 2 in a row. Now we have no rest advantages, no travel advantages. The game ended at the same time in the same place. So those kind of factors become moot points. So the market tends to be a little bit flatter. We have seen some big movements in the under for Cavaliers Magic and on the 76ers against the spread. So those were the 2 of the spots that I jumped in and target. For best bets, I still think Cavs the under is playable for a few reasons that we can get into. And I think the 76ers spread offers a very worthy discussion of how we're tracking and pricing home court advantages and how we could use this information potentially later in the playoffs.
Yeah, so let's go over the best bets right now, and Fiddle gave you those right now. He's on Cavs Magic under, not scared of a sub 200 under. I bet the over in game 2 based off of, there was a historical trend that basically teams in the Cavaliers spot, and it was an interesting one of like, if you're one of these teams that just beats the snot out, you're a sizable favorite. I got this off of you with the 4.5 point spread. You talked about that on the Advantage Sports Betting podcast, which you can also download. You talked about that. So I looked at that numbers, and what stood out to me is when I looked at that data up on Killer Sports, it was like, oh, hey, by the way, the over kills in the next game. And the reason is like that tracks from me from a logical standpoint where I was like, okay, so the first team maintains their offensive advantage to cover, but the other team probably figures out enough offensively to swing back and they're motivated because they just lost. Let's try and get some momentum going into game two. Like you get closer, you figure out some rotations. Didn't happen because the Orlando Magic, like there just may not be a floor on the offense. Like it just may be there may be no like the floor may be like 70 points for this Orlando Magic team, given how rough it's been for them as this has kind of gone on. You mentioned kind of like where how the market has evaluated a lot of these things. If we look at the total, let's hit that one first. My best bets, by the way, I'm gonna take this. I'm with Fiddle on Sixers minus 4.5. I'm gonna take the Lakers on the money line. I love pain, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that again. Let's hit this Cavs Magic total. So there is sharp money that's obviously come in on the under. 57% of the tickets are on the under. The money has come in on the over, but we're tracking sharp action on the under. So the way that you should think about this is, all right, the majority of people think Cavs Magic, this series is god awful. No one can score. Let's take an under. There's big money that's coming in and basically being like, yeah, but there's like an opportunity here for the under, so I'm gonna bet the over on it. But the sharp action's like, no. Like the bets that move the line are very much no. That this is still an underplay. There's a floor here. What was kind of your logic for wanting the under at 199.5 in the market?
So I even think that it started at 203. So I always love saying what was the opening line in this game, and then what's been the reasons between then and now that we might attribute to going from 203 down to 199.5. We saw Jalen Suggs get Paul Pierce carried off the court. We've seen the soccer mentality flood the NBA playoffs, whether Embiid is seeing stars or fixing his brace for an 100th time. But generally, there's been a ton of under movement in this game. So the open was 203, and then it came down to as low as 198.5. And now it's going back up, Matt. So what I'm drawing from that is there was big moves that came in on the under, and people who grabbed the under are now starting to buy back that over. So you almost play both sides of the line. It's a very sharp thing to do. Something I personally love to do is just track where the market is moving and set myself up to play best numbers against each other and open up a middle. So what I think happened in this Cavaliers game is that these late kind of over bets are actually just buybacks from good people who grab strong under positions.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's like, so it's going to kind of, you're going to see some overs be juiced to minus 112 because they know that they want that. And if you're paying into a minus 112, you're increasing the implied probability of your small middle window, which lowers your value. It's very nuanced and kind of nerdy stuff, the stuff that I love, but I still think this total is playable under 199.5. I think that those ticks up are buybacks, so I'm not scared that it's like, oh, there's over sentiment coming back into the market. What I've despised on the court from the Orlando Magic, Matt, and I'd love to get your take on this, is the way that you respect my market opinion. I look at you to a basketball opinion and the way that you can break down the game. That's why we make for a good podcast. But I don't understand why potential coach of the year, potential second or third place coach of the year, Jamal Mosley, is starting Jonathan Isaac and going into a playoff series with a starting lineup that's played 32 minutes together throughout the course of the regular season. If you are a tough Magic team and you got the 5 seed and people were kind of riding your bandwagon for how hard and physical you play, and Jonathan Isaac was almost your secret weapon off the bench, that he was so high energy and so good that when maybe the starting lineup starts to dip in their opening energy levels, he was that linchpin that could muck everything up. I've despised the move to bench Wendell Carter and start Jonathan Isaac at the start of the playoffs. I just think it was a coaching move you didn't need to make.
Yeah, so I think a lot of this is this is Jamal Mosley's first playoff run. It's not like he hasn't been around playoff teams, but this is the first playoff run for him. And so that's always a tough, I think, adjustment. The second thing is that when you're at a disadvantage in terms of a talent category, and you're a team like the Magic, they tend to ride like, I like the way that this unit has been playing together. Like this unit has played with the right energy. This unit has played with the right emphasis. This unit has played like those kind of intangible things, like those are very real to the players and coaches. Like I have to like constantly remind myself of that because I'm always like, yeah, but like it's not as good as the other thing. You should do the other thing because that's a tactical thing. Um, it takes a while for them to get there. Now, this also may be a case of like, all right, let's go into Cleveland. Let's see where we can get to with our starters. Obviously, they get killed both games. Their team total. The Magic went under 17 and a half points under their team total in game one and 14 points in game two. So they only gained 3.5 points
And
on the
that's why
team
we love
total.
escalator bets and
Yeah.
laddering things in the playoffs and going deep into those angles when you have them. And this game is probably priced out, but when this line opened for game one at like 207 and a half, if someone was
Yeah.
smart enough to say, sell me 12 points and play an under 195, this is a race to 100, that'd be really smart. I think we need to refire up the Wendell Carter Jr. to Memphis rumors this summer.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's going to be on on the block. I think there's going to be a lot of teams interested in WCJ. I had an over on WCJ points and assists in the first game because I was like, oh, he'll play in the second unit and he'll have lots of opportunities versus the Cavaliers specific pick and roll coverage where they play two at the level. I love that bet. And then like after game one, I was like, oh, but they don't have anybody that can actually create in those units. They're not playing Franz and WCJ together a whole lot, and they can't create anything versus how the Cavs are. They don't have the playmakers to hit the trigger. So it doesn't matter. Like WCJ is not going to be in a position to make the plays I think he can make. Now, I don't think that Wendell's been good. The pushback for like an overbet here would be like, well, okay, look, you're flipping arenas, right? They'll shoot better at home. Role players shoot better at home. Well, two things. One, yes, but the Cavaliers are likely to shoot worse by that same logic, and the Cavaliers have still gone in the two games 9 points under their team total and 9.5 points on their team total. You hit me. What's up?
Within that, the Cavaliers shooting splits at home this season are amazing compared to their road. So if we're going to say, oh, well, Orlando's going to shoot better, then we have to say the Cavaliers have shot worse all season when they've been on the road. I've been back in Hauser and Garland and Mitchell threes at home. So going on the road, you're going to get worse shooting from Cleveland.
Yeah, and so that's the counter there. And then the other thing is just like, look, let's look at that DPS margin, right? Which is a delta points scored. It's team total. It's basically what's your margin versus team total. Magic at 17 and a half and 14. There is no unit, there is no place they can play that where that's going to improve enough. Even if you're like, okay, on the road, bad variance game for a bad shooting Orlando team, they're at home. Like that swing can't be enough to get this to a place where you're like, yeah, the Magic will sneak over their team total. Like it just, especially with this move where these markets are all derivative, right? So with the Magic now being favored, that's going to generate a higher team total on them, or at least it's going to make it to where there's not like an opportunity to get on a lower number on them built off of those figures. And now like the totals move down, so that definitely matters, I think. But if we look at like there's a team total you can play at BetMGM, the shortest is 100.5. So it's basically maybe that's like there actually might be something to this, and I don't think I'm going to bet this, but just as like an idea, there's probably something, and I know that you're not a huge fan of the old SGP, but I will say there's probably a correlational value here of which team do you think is going to score 100 points? If you think neither, just bet the under, right? Because then they have to go under. But if you're like, okay, I think one team will score 100 and the other one won't, then it's like that team plus a team total over to win, or correlational the other way, which is like, let's say you like the Magic, take Cavs, which you can get the under here at the under on 100 and a half, or yeah, it's actually 98 and a half. But if you take 100 and a half and minus 135, them and Cavs and Magic money line, or I would lay the point. I would just lay the point. Minus 110. There's probably some correlational value there just from the perspective of if we're doing game script. Now, it might just be safer just to go ahead and do individual bets or just bet the under here because it's also very possible it's like, hey, 102 to 88 either way. I also I'll say this, if the Magic get the team total over, it's not a lock that they win this game. And if they do hit the team total over, it's not like they're going to crush this on an alt. Like
Right.
the least bet I want of all is Magic team total over here on an alt.
Agreed.
So let's talk Sixers Knicks minus 4.5 in the market now. Big move towards them. Look, I have a hard time with the series right now. because the Knicks have been my nemesis in the playoffs the last 2 years.
They're my regular season nemesis.
I'm sorry. The Sixers have been better, guys. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
understand that that's tough. And if you're a Knicks fan, one of these 7,000 Knicks fans that work at Action, that's tough. But like the Sixers have been better, guys. Game one was literally Miles McBride go burr. And then game two was whatever the fuck happened at the end of that game. Now, that can decide the series. So like I can't bet. I thought about it. I was talking about in a chat with Brandon and Raheem and was like, do I want Sixers series here? Because like they've been better. And I kind of was like, no, because they basically lost 2 coin flip games. And even if they're better, the math doesn't work there. It's why Brandon was on Knicks game two series win, because he's kind of right. Like I can think that the Knicks or the Sixers are the better team. They're not such a better team that they should win 4 of 5. And if they shouldn't win 4 of 5, even at the value that I can get on a Sixers ticket right now, I don't like it. But why do you like the Sixers -4.5 in this game in particular?
I want to start by answering with saying the market says that these teams are dead even. So whether we say 76ers are a little bit better, every other Action Network or contributor who's a Knicks fan is going to say the Knicks are 10 times better. But we have -4.5 point spreads in New York, and then we have -4.5 point spread for Philadelphia in their home arena. What is it, Wells Fargo?
Yeah.
So we've gotten the information that these teams are dead even. They'd be pick them on a neutral court, which doesn't happen in the NBA. Their barns are each worth 4.5 points, which maybe we could use in the future. But I felt, Matt, and call me crazy, you could this is either going to be a great idea or a horrible thought. Nowhere in between. But I felt it was the best way that the 76ers could have ended up losing last game. They went into that third quarter down 7, and if they had like gotten run out and been really tired and gassed out and ended up losing by 11 or 12, I think they would have been defeated. They're going back to Philadelphia knowing they had it in the bin and they lost it, and they can win and they can beat this team. The Knicks needed everything to go right in the final minute and a half, and it did for them. It was a historic comeback. It will live on in New York history, but I just feel like squeaky wheel gets the grease. We know Daryl Morey's trying to petition the game, so I do think they're good. They're going to get a good home whistle, and I think that the home crowd's going to make a huge difference in this spot. I think the 76ers are a slightly better team, and I'm glad that you're still playing the -4.5, because I originally played the 3, and I guess my question for you was, can we still play a 4.5 since it's got up to that point?
Yeah, so like I've got it. I would have liked to have gotten it there. I've got his power rated at 4.4, so I'm just under this mark. But that's based off of the adjustment that I had to make on the Sixers, where it's like if I'm doing the power rating and I'm moving them up and down, how do you factor in Embiid returning and them and that like completing them? So I gave them a pretty significant bump. Which here's the thing is like Embiid looks better than like the worst case outcomes. You can be like, I don't know, he looks pretty okay, but the impact is there. Like was a big part of like one of the reasons why I like the Sixers is like if Joel's there, everything fits around him much better, and that makes the entire team better. Now the problem in New York in part was that didn't happen, and maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe Tobias Harris just keeps putting out absolute turds on the floor every single time that he touches it. At home, again, we get into like the role players are probably going to play a little bit better. They're going to have the wind at their back. One thing I will say that I have been thinking about a lot, and like I like Sixers -4.5. This is a 2 possession game. I'll play the Matt Mitchell rule here because I think the Sixers are going to win this game. But one thing I have been thinking about is, okay, if the Sixers if Joel Embiid had not gotten hurt, and it's a chaos theory scenario because everything changes then. I do kind of think that if we just kind of take that and we go, all right, the Sixers get the 2, and the Knicks outplay everybody else and get the 3. Maybe the Cavs change their dynamic and they wind up in the 4 or whatever. But let's say the Knicks get 3, and this was a second round series. Would I have been surprised if New York won both games in New York in games 4 and 5? No, absolutely not. 100% no. Would I have thought that the Sixers would have won games 1 and 2? Yes. Like, would I have expected this series to be 2-2 after 4 games? Yeah. And so the fact that the Knicks at home got both of their wins off of real wonky stuff. And again, if you're a Knicks fan listening to this, I think your team is good. I have futures on you. I will bet you if the Bucks advance either series. If you get out of the series, I'm betting Knicks next round. Like I'm on Knicks next round. it's this matchup I don't like for you. But if we look at game one, all of the starters were negative, all of the bench was positive. And when you have these kind of mechanisms where it's like, okay, you're losing the minutes in which the players that play the most are on the floor. I get really worried if you win those games because I'm like, I don't know that that's sustainable. Now, again, that can decide the series. These could be the two coin flip games that decide it. We could just play chalk here on out and Knicks win, right? Like go 7, Knicks won these two coin flip games, they come out ahead. That's a completely likely scenario at this point. But what I think is also kind of interesting is there's been the idea of like, well, Jalen Brunson's going to play better. Jalen, so there's a couple of different versions of pick and roll, and I've talked a lot about drop, and I've talked about switch, and I've talked about at level. One that the Sixers love is ice. That's why you hear the famous thing is like Tibbs yelling ice, ice, ice. The Sixers love to ice, ice, ice. And the reason what it is all you're trying to do is you're just trying to force the guard away from the middle. So when they try and get to the middle, you overplay with your guard coming over to get him to come back the other way. You give him the side, you let them drive right or left. They don't get to the middle. And that's really when I went back and watched these possessions, the way that the Sixers are playing ice and as good as they are at it has caused Jalen Brunson some problems. Now, there's counters that you can run very easily to work out ice, and Jalen can have a phenomenal game 3. But it is kind of worth noting, I think, that one of the things that I like about the Knicks is Jalen Brunson's ability to attack drop coverage, which he'll face versus Milwaukee if they advance. That's a whole other thing we'll talk about tomorrow. But the Sixers aren't really playing drop. They're playing ice, and that's causing a lot more problems because Jalen's smaller. And so one of the key mechanisms there is your ability to reverse it to the corner for those corner threes. Those angles are harder when you're a smaller guard. It's almost like ice is like a modified version of playing at level in that you're basically playing 2 on a little bit deeper in the paint. And that's done a very good job of containing him. Now, again, Jalen's a phenomenal player, and he can just have a massive game because he's Jalen Brunson. I think he's a motherfucker. But I do think that's something to kind of keep in mind here, and that's another reason why I'll take the Sixers minus 4.5. In the last game, Denver Nuggets, I'm going to take the Lakers just for a sprinkle on the money line. I'm going to wait because I think that the Nuggets are going to get juiced here. Like, we've got 71% of the tickets and 55% of the money. We've got sharp action on the Lakers, which doesn't surprise me. Like, it doesn't surprise me that the Sharps are like, look, man, they've been in these games. This is the entire reason that
They've had an anomalous amount of 10-point leads in these
That's
games.
the thing. And like, this is what I keep trying to explain to people is like, I feel trapped here where it's like, do you really think the Lakers are going to win anytime in this series? I'm like, no, the fucking Nuggets destroy them.
Yep.
But that's a narrative proposition. Like,
yeah.
if you have a double-digit lead, your win probability is like 80%. They had a 20-point lead in the third
gotten
quarter.
Burned on some of these live bets on these teams. But given the fact that the Lakers have had these double-digit leads and that the Nuggets are 10-0 in the last 10 games, it's really well priced. And this is what we talked about even before we hopped on air. You would think if you're backing a team that smacked the other team in the mouth 10 times, swept them in a playoff series last year, and they're doing it again, that they would be minus 3.5 on the road, minus 4.5 on the road. The fact that they're putting this at Denver -1 makes you be like, oh my God, I have no idea what to touch. And I just look forward to watching this game with no bets.
Yeah. And I'll say, I think I will just be very, very simple with this. I want to say this unequivocally. I talked about this on Twitter. I do not think the NBA is rigged. Why would I devote all of my time to covering a league that's rigged? Why would I do that? That's an absurd proposition. It doesn't hold up to any sort of examination. Do I think that the Los Angeles Lakers get an excessive whistle for whatever reason that is unexplainable to me? Yes, like the numbers do not track to me. I've done the research on drives. I've done the research on shots in the paint. I've done research on touches in the paint. I've found where they get their free throws. You know where they get most of their free throws from? It's the bonus. They get touch fouls on the perimeter, and that gets them in the bonus, and they shoot a lot of those. I don't have explanations for why those things happen. I don't have those explanations. What I do know is that the Los Angeles Lakers are coming off a game where they shot fewer free throws than the opponent, and they complained about it to a large degree. The last time that the Lakers had a situation in which they felt they were screwed this badly, we had the sleepless nights tweet from the officials, and that kicked off an era of like unprecedented free throw advantage. I think the Lakers are going to shoot a lot of free throws in this game. I think Anthony Davis points over is probably a good proposition given that. Like there's a very good chance that Davis goes for 40 in this one, even if he only scores 5 in the fourth quarter. Um, but
Austin Reeves might show up if they're getting a
yep,
friendly whistle.
yep. And so for me, like this just comes down to like, look, yes, yes, I accept. Like, do I think the Nuggets own them? Yes, I've been at these games. Is how the Nuggets own them important? Yeah, because the Lakers now can't feel any sense of comfort. And I hated the way that the Lakers approached post game last game, where they were literally like, you need to be, when you're down 0-2 to a team that's beaten you 10 straight, you need to be like, this is why I compete. I'm not just here for when it's easy. Like, yeah, it's hard. That team's great. They're the best team in the world. They're the defending champions. But we know how good we are. We did build a 20-point lead. We have an opportunity. We've just got to be better, and we can be. That's the message you want to send. Here's what we got. I don't understand it because like they hit D'Lo in the face, and that's not fair, and I don't get it. And then we have Anthony Davis being like, Jamal Murray hit a shot. I'm gonna pout and walk off the stage, and then being like, also throwing his coach under the bus. Like this is the exact opposite response you want from the Lakers.
His outfit was phenomenal.
It was a phenomenal outfit.
It was like a robe silk thing with red glasses. I mean, what I honestly think, if I kind of think in terms of the whole NBA player fits, that if you're going to prepare a post-game fit, it's actually a good thing. And a lot of these players get hated on it, which I think we could use it almost in a Suns Wolves. It's a completely different conversation. Suns players don't really care what they wear to the post-game presser. And you see AD and all these other guys going with the swag level on a pure 100. And they go to their post-game presser. They put together that outfit manifesting a win and how it's going to feel to sit in the post-game and being there. We talk about those things in so many aspects of life. You should try and manifest this and
visualization.
Plan on these, visualize these outcomes. Imagine yourself hitting the 2 biggest free throws, making that game-winning shot. So I kind of like it, but can I throw you 3 other bets that I've seen as we've talked about this slate that have kind of caught my eye that I'm considering?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay. Let's work backwards and do the games that we just talked about. Michael Porter Jr. now going on the road, given all that he's dealing with, saying that he's got 15 brothers in the room. Is it a situation with the game totals now dropping from 223s to 216s in the market? Do we play an MPJ under 17.5?
I don't like it. I don't mind the cap on it based off of again, we talk about road kind of variants, and I don't have MPJ splits in front of me. But the one thing I would say is the Lakers are in a position. There's a reason that there are series where MPJ has struggled in the playoffs, and there's series where he's been phenomenal. He's great in all these Lakers games, and the reason is the Lakers don't have any choice but to put someone smaller on him, and they don't have any choice but to help off of him. If they don't help off, AG kills them, just murders them. So they have to put somebody big. So their rotation means unless they're going to go heavy Taurean Prince, it means that MPJ is going to have really good looks consistently. That makes me nervous. That said, that is a pretty hefty number, so I wouldn't mind the under there, but I think I'm gonna stay away.
Okay. He also has a crazy high release point. So if you put a small defender on him, it's just he's not even seeing him.
Shooting rack.
Potential Josh Hart under 11.5 rebounds. It's at plus money for 11.5. Now I know, is he going to play 45 minutes? Yes. Has it gone too far where now we're getting plus money on an under 11.5? Because over the regular season, hopefully our guy Joe Delera tunes into this pod, but Joe's been playing his overs, rebounds all season, and he was getting this crazy usage rate, but the prop number was 7.5, 8.5 with fair juice. Now it's 11.5 with plus money to the under, where you have to eat juice to take an over. I'm like, that might be priced where it's time to go the other way.
I think it's a reason not to bet it. I don't think you want the under, and the reason is Joel can't rebound.
That's true. He's so hurt.
He just can't. And if Joel's still going to play 35 minutes, and if Hart's going to play 45, he's going to be on the floor with Embiid almost the entire time, and Josh is just going to keep he's not going to stop attacking, right? The only thing that can stop him is bigger size, and they don't have it. B-Ball Paul is up a creek in this series, so I think
they were even saying they're going to play him next to Embiid.
I think there's a reason. I think that's a reason not to bet it. I do think the market's gone too far, but I think that moves it from a bet to a no bet.
Okay, last one, and then we'll get out of here. What's a more likely outcome, Matt? the Celtics losing one game, like this next game, but the listeners have watched it by the time, I've seen it by the time that they're hearing this podcast. But do the Celtics lose tonight, or do the Magic win the series? What is a bigger chance of an outcome? The Heat pulling one game off, or the Magic pulling off the series?
Still Magic pulling off the series, because if Donovan Mitchell gets hurt, that's it. The Celtics can literally sustain almost any injury and survive. It would take cluster injuries for them not
The reason why I ask is because I was looking at Celtics. I already played the Celtics minus 1250 money line. I am not scared to play a juice money line. I will play it straight. I just won't overexpose myself. I will hit my putts. We just watched the Masters. Cavs series price is minus 800. So I was just talking to myself and I was just like, what's the difference in playing a minus 1250 money line for a team in a one-off game scenario versus a team that's already up 2-0 that looks so dominant to just take home the rest of the series at minus 800? Of course, you also have to factor in that to do that, you'd be laying a unit or two and waiting a week. But if you have a problem laying 2 units and waiting a week for the return, you should probably check your bankroll management.
Yeah, I mean, it's one game environment versus the odds of the 2-0, right? Like the history of the 2-0. The problem is, like, there are instances of teams blowing 2-0s, and God knows, like, if you look like, hey, what's a team profile of a team that would lose
this Cavaliers team that makes it harder on themselves every night?
That would be it. All right, it's gonna do it for buckets. My thanks to Michael Fiddle. You can check him out in the Action Network app and on Twitter at Fiddle's Picks. You can also check him out on the Advantage Sports Betting podcast. He's also got a great Substack you can find on his Twitter account. We'll be back tomorrow with bets for the Friday slate. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. My thanks to David Payne, Hutton Jackson, our production team, for getting this up. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. Till then, let's get buckets.